mic?
You need the microphone?
Yes, that's it. Got the mic for it.
No, is that better?
That's better.
My name is Nancy Briggs, and I'm with the East Bay Patriots, who is sponsoring this event, and I'd like to welcome you all here for Independence Night. We're very fortunate tonight to have two candidates for the U.S. Congress, Doherty, who is challenging David Cicilline from the 1st Congressional District, and Mary Hinckley, who is challenging Sheldon Whitehouse from the U.S. Senate. I hope you will listen to what each has to say. Please feel free to ask as many questions as you'd like. That's what they're here for. There's also refreshments in the back if anybody gets thirsty or wants a snack during the meet and greet. But anyway, I'd like to start. I think Mr. Doherty is going to start, and I'd like to introduce him.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me okay in the back?
Yes.
Well, I appreciate the invitation. I appreciate being here. If I'm not mistaken, this used to be the Stagecoach years ago.
Yes.
I actually went to one of Coachman. I actually went to one of my high school proms here. Went to two of them. Actually, my wife would get a kick out of that because she was my high school sweetheart. She's now my wife, and this is where we had our senior prom. But my name is Brendan Doherty. I'm running for Congress in the 1st District, and I'll tell you about why I'm running and a little bit about my background. I'm running because I think we need more leadership in Rhode Island, and we need more leadership in Washington, and we need a stronger voice in Washington for Rhode Island. I was the colonel of the state police for the last 4 years. Spent just about my entire adult life in the state police. I was once the youngest trooper in the state, and then I woke up one day and I was the oldest trooper in the state. I spent most of my career in the organized crime unit with grand jury investigations and wiretaps on Cosa Nostra, which unfortunately we had a black eye in Rhode Island years ago for having a mob family here that ran New England. So I focused on that, then I transferred over as the officer in charge of the public corruption unit. So I saw politics from a different lens. And I spent a few years running the public corruption unit and then worked my way up to the executive officer of the state police. Retired, went to Roger Williams as an adjunct professor and the head of health, environmental, and then public safety. And then in 2007, Governor Patriots asked me to come back as the superintendent of the state police, which was an honor because no one had ever retired from the state police and been asked to come back as a superintendent. So it was really an honor because I respect greatly the men and women of the state police, what they represent, because sometimes the state police are the last bastion of ethical hope in some of these political investigations that I worked with the FBI and the U.S. Attorney's Office. Do we have any media here? Any media?
We have media.
No. Okay. Some of the investigations that I was involved in go back to the Joseph Malacone investigation and the banking crisis, and also back to the impeachment of Chief Justice Bevilacqua, and several political corruption cases along the way, and then mob cases, the indictments of many members of Cosa Nostra. But when I came back as superintendent, I was obviously charged with efficiently running the state police, and I take a lot of pride in that, running that organization. And at that time, the legislature recognized that there were several other agencies that needed to be run more efficiently. So they asked me to wear another hat as the Commissioner of Public Safety and take over E911, the fire marshals, the Capitol Police, and several others. So ran those departments efficiently, but when I came back as superintendent of the state police, you all, the voters, had given the Department of Public Safety the opportunity to build a new state police headquarters and public safety headquarters. And when I came back, they were in what I call about the 8th inning of that project. It was ready. They were ready to break ground. The voters in 2002 in a bond referendum gave the state $40 million to build that building. So when I came back, I asked a very simple question. Everyone was stopped the project. And I went across the street from one Capitol Hill to the State House, and I went to see the governor unannounced, Governor Patriots, and I asked him if he was aware of the fact that the project had gone up to about $70 million, and he was not aware of that. And I called it a runaway train. He asked, what can we do? And I said, I stopped the project, which he was happy with. And I value engineered that building and brought the cost down to $27 million, built on time, on budget, on state land. And the reason it saved the state $13 million from the original cost and some $43 million or whatever from where that runaway train was going. So the reason I tell that story is I don't always see fiscal responsibility in the federal government. And I've worked alongside the federal government and task forces and the Department of Justice and long enough to see a lot of waste. And I believe, and one thing that's near and dear to my heart is investigating waste and fraud and corruption. So it goes back to why I decided to run for Congress. I decided to run last May. I announced May 12th of last year because I think we need more leadership. We need to bring jobs back to America. We know we're in tough times. This is the greatest country in the world, but in my view, Washington's broken. Congress has about an 11% approval rating. You couldn't run a business like that with an 11% approval rating. So I'll be talking about jobs and growing jobs through, we need tax reform. I truly believe we need tax reform. We have the highest corporate tax rate in the world in America. And we need to create an opportunity or environment for the private sector to grow jobs because government doesn't grow jobs. I saw so many wasted jobs in government when I worked alongside of them, in silos in the government that we're not communicating, weren't talking to one another. Agencies that had silos within them doing the same thing. So that frustrates me. So I'll be talking a lot about taxation and energy. We should be in an energy revolution in this country. We have tremendous opportunities for growth in energy. We lost a huge opportunity with the Keystone Pipeline. 1,700 miles of pipeline to be laid by American workers. We missed that. Folks, we have the fraud and waste and corruption with Solyndra, $536 million of your money. We had this GSA training period that they just had, I don't know if you followed it, was $823,000, which really turned out to be nothing more than a party of government money, taxpayers' money. So that's something I'll be shining a light on when I get to Washington. I'll be talking a lot about debt. We're $15.6 trillion debt. It's just, we just can't go on this way. So we're talking about debt, energy, taxation, tax reform, and leadership. Leadership's not about ranks and privileges and titles. I've seen people throughout my career abuse their leadership roles, and it's shameful. Leadership's about taking responsibility for what happens on your watch. And we didn't see that 2 years ago in the city of Providence. So folks, I want to be a citizen representative to represent Rhode Island the way we used to be represented. I want to set an example for future generations. I believe in American exceptionalism. I believe that everything we do going forward, we need to think about and talk about America first. Thank you very much for having me here. Appreciate it.
I prefer to have questions first and then.
Yes, because I have to run to another meeting. So I'd be more than happy to answer any questions that you may have.
I have one question.
this where we need to more efficiently run our healthcare. You know, we need electronic medical records, I believe, and we need evidence-based medicine, and I believe we need tort reform. But we need to sit down at the table, reach across the table, and get this done, not have it shoved down Congress's throat the way Obamacare was. Yes, sir.
Okay, you're in the public corruption unit?
Yes.
Okay, do you believe that Mr. Sinanci did anything corrupt in the way that he handled the finances in Providence when he was mayor there? And will you nail him on that in the campaign?
You mean Cicilline?
You mean Cicilline?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, Cicilline.
We were going back a few years.
Oh, what's the difference?
Sorry.
I believe that he certainly made some inappropriate decisions as it relates to the budget. I believe he misled the people, not only the people of Providence, but the state, the entire state of Rhode Island, because as go the city of Providence, so go the rest of the state. Yes, I will be calling him out on that.
But did he do anything corrupt, or was it just unethical?
Well, it depends on how you define corrupt. He misled the taxpayers, he misled the voters, he misled the people of Rhode Island when he said that the city was in fantastic shape, I think is the term he used, was fantastic, when there were $110 million in debt. So, you know, that wouldn't be something for me to, as far as corruption, that wouldn't be something for me to call him out on, that would be the U.S. Attorney's Office. But I will certainly shine a light on all of the, and there are other areas where he was less than truthful. Yes.
Actually, on that note, I mean, would you go as far as saying that he at least broke the public trust?
Oh, there's no question that he broke public trust. And when I talk about leadership, he failed us as leader. But those are things I will be continuing to talk about because it can't be forgotten. And that's what a lot of politicians do. They think that they'll have a faux pas and it'll be forgotten by the time the voters get into the voting booth. And we just can't have that.
So you would remind the voters?
Oh, I'll remind them often. And I think that this race is about character. Yes, sir.
Well, I guess the number that came in as far as our expenses in the Iraq war was $5 trillion. Now, I'm a veteran, I'm not a combat vet, thank God, but support our military, but I don't support what I saw in Iraq with the peacekeeping forces and the nation building and spending of $5 trillion. Particularly when I'm listening to, for instance, the people in Newport right now, they have sewer and water infrastructure problems and they can't get a dime out of Washington, but we just rebuilt half Iraq. And I think a lot of people feel that we're spending way too much money and giving too much aid to foreign countries. And it's time that we cut back and take care of America.
I couldn't agree with you anymore. We need to support our folks that are overseas, but we need to bring them home in a timely fashion.
Yes.
Without giving a date certain so our enemies know when we bring them home. But when you talk about foreign aid, we're nation building in many different nations, and we have trouble in Woonsocket and Central Falls and Providence and in Newport, and we need to repair our bridges. soldier in uniform. You see people, seniors having their luggage taken apart. You know, there's a way to do that. There's a way to keep our airports secure without being overzealous. And I think sometimes we see zealots in those positions, but it's at a heavy cost. Yes, sir.
Two questions. One is I'm very concerned about the president's executive orders. What would you think about reacting to some of those executive orders? Some of his appointees, some of the things that the EPA has done, some of the things Homeland Security is doing, like buying millions of rounds of ammunition. And number two question is you seem to be a nice guy. I hope to heck you're going to get some counseling on debating with somebody that doesn't care whether he tells the truth and is a former lawyer.
Well, to answer the second part of that, I think I am a nice guy, but I can, you know, I was in a difficult situation most of my career.
He's tough.
I think, let me just say this, I know quite a bit about Congressman Sicilian. To answer your first question, yeah, I think that sometimes there's just too much of an administration's overreach on some of these special deals that he's handed out, and he's waiting for Congress to go on vacation for one of them. So, yeah, there's in regulations, you mentioned EPA, I think we need to look at all of these regulations. Regulations are hurting American businesses. We need to look at these regulations one at a time. Some of them are antiquated. We can get rid of them. Others, they're there for good reason. But I think it's a job impediment at some points.
Given your history and experience and the places you've been, things you've had to do, I look at Nancy's question a minute ago dealing with Homeland Security, and then you can go for anything else. Do you have ideas as to how government and the various bureaucrats that become leaders in government can somehow not be this unchecked, unfettered, just sort of self-important monstrosity of overextension of original mandates? How does anyone get to deal with this kind of thing? I would think that you would have had some experience over your life in dealing with just that.
Well, dealing with controversy and difficult situations at the table when you need to resolve a problem, Washington doesn't do a good job of that. Congress doesn't do a good job of that. You need a strong voice at the table, but you also need to be able to work together in the best, in my view, in the best interest of the country. And we don't see that today. And, you know, I have been in very, very difficult situations. I won't tell you all my stories. Some of them are very painful. I was I did a lot of work in the station fire. think it goes back to leadership and sitting down at the table, like I said, finding common ground in some of these areas. We have the strongest, the best, and brightest military in the world. We need to support our military. We need to support our homeland security. But it comes back to spending. We spend too much money. Look, we have, I believe there's 16 million people in this country on SSDI or SSDI, and some of them need that. Some of them deserve to be on these programs, but there are people gaming the system. There's people gaming all of these systems. And that's when I talk about fraud and waste and corruption, talking about the $48 billion stolen from Medicare and the gaming of SSDI and SSI. We just can't allow this anymore. And the system that's put into place is broken. So that's when I talk about sitting down at the table, finding solutions to these problems. You need to do it together. It needs to be done in a bipartisan way. Some of those areas, issues that I'm talking about. Yes.
What do you think of the president's dealings or relationship with Israel? What do you think about Cohen's handling that?
Well, I think he's gone back and forth on his posture on how to support Israel. I had the opportunity to travel to Israel to study counterterrorism. I was there for a week, and I understand the difficulty the people of the state of Israel go through every day. From having been there in the Gaza Strip and up in the Golan Heights, I think we need to support the people of the state of Israel. We have a special relationship with the people of the state of Israel. We can't allow Iran to have a nuclear weapon. I can't answer for
Do you
what
think the
the
president
president's.
will back Israel up?
I think we'll have
When it
to.
comes to shove?
I think we'll have to, because I think Congress knows that we should be backing Israel. Yes.
What's going to happen if Cicilline loses his primary to Gemma? Do you have a different plan for that?
We will have to change our strategy a little bit, but I'm confident that I'll beat either one of them. It's as simple as that. I think.
Gemma's another businessman. He's going to go kind of the same mode that you are. That you're both not politicians.
Well, I wish him luck. I'm very confident that I'll do both of them. I think this race is about character in both races. Yes, sir.
Have you looked at the demographics in Rhode Island as to why we on the right, Republicans, are having a tough time taking over the stadium, and why we can't seem to wrest it back after 7 years with the Democrats? Is it because of the teachers' unions, the public unions, the students? What's driving that? Why do we lose so much?
Well, I can't speak to the state rep and senate races, state senator races, but I can tell you, if I'm not mistaken, only one of the last 5 governors of the state was a Democrat. I think people recognize that we need a balance. And yes, I have looked at the demographics. I look at it every day. And I feel very confident in our strategy. You see, I spent a lot of time in the inner city coaching kids, so I know a lot of families in the inner city, and I've spent a lot of my career working in the inner cities. And so, in the redistricting, it's a very interesting new map of redistricting, and I think that some people might have thought that was going to hurt me, and I don't feel that way. I don't know if I'm answering your question correctly, but this is not a democratic state. This is the people's state, and I feel very confident going forward that we'll elect the right people.
Now, how do you classify yourself? Do you consider yourself a center-right, moderate?
I'm a Republican. I'm sorry. I thought you were telling me to stop. I would consider myself a moderate Republican. Folks, thanks again